Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having great training days. Yesterday's video, I addressed a very unique situation that's going on with a particular viewer and his dog. In short, just kind of like a little bit of a recap, he has a dog who is terribly afraid of the mailman, or the mail person, whatever. Whenever this mail truck pulls up, he has a situation in which he has an older house in an older community, and the mail person every day comes at about between 3 and 3:30 and delivers the mail through a slot in the door. And the dog, about 2:30 p.m., roughly about anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes prior to the arrival of the mail person, the dog is gone. It is headed back to the back of the house and is hiding underneath the bed. Now, again, that's very unusual because most dogs, especially if you have more than one dog, will use what's called the mobbing effect, and they will repel. Strength in numbers, baby. I'm emboldened. We will run this intruder, this perception of a trespasser, what have you, but we are going to run this thing off. And that behavior gets reinforced over and over and over again because they attack the door, and sure enough, the delivery person leaves. And they just keep getting, they rack up one in the W column all the time. They never get one racked up in the losing column. So this is really unusual, in which we have a dog doing the exact opposite. It is running to the back, to the very back of the house and hiding. So yesterday I explained that unfortunately, we humans have muddled so much into the genetics of one of the most prolific social predators that ever traipse across the landscape of this planet, called the wolf. We have muddled with the genetics in that animal to such a degree that we now have dogs evoking anti-predatory behavior. Wow, you're a predator. Out in the wild, the wolf is an apex predator, meaning they have no natural enemies. No one that's going to hunt them. They do all the hunting. They give the ulcers. They don't get ulcers. And we took that genetic baseline, and we reduced it and degraded it to such a point in our pursuit to create something that serves an emotional value for us, has value from an emotional standpoint. That started happening about 2 or 3 decades ago when we moved away from the working dog, a dog that was there to serve us, to help us, work with us, protect, herd livestock, protect property, find weapons, hunt down bad guys, you name it. We started moving away from that direction and now moving into 4-legged companions. And because of that, we finally are now starting to reap, or basically the consequences of doing that, in which we have animals who now perceive a threat at a level that just shouldn't be there. So it's really sad that that's happening, and that's definitely what's happening. We're seeing more and more of it, in which dogs are evoking anti-predatory behaviors, even though they're still classified as a social predator themselves. Okay, so what do you do when you evoke anti-predatory behavior? First of all, you have to ID the possible predator, and you use many cues to do that. And this dog is able to do that, able to identify a particular mail truck arriving at a certain time of the day. And when you can identify a threat, whether the rest of the people in the world don't think it's a threat, but you do, then you start to take action. When you are aware of the presence of a predator, you must evoke anti-predatory behavior, because an encounter with that predator is oftentimes lethal. And in part of evoking that, they will use measures, spatial measures, meaning they will adjust their habitat, where they'll be at any given part of the day. They'll adjust the time exactly at any time of the day, nighttime, dawn. Will I go in the dog park? Will I won't go in the dog park? Well, this dog, for example, he hangs out at the front of the house, loves to look out the window, loves to watch the world go by and people go by. He just loves to hang out by the big front window in the front of the house until about 2:30, then he's gone. So now he is using what's called temporal, meaning he knows the time, and he's also using spatial to get away. And that's what a lot of predators will do. They'll also try to, one of the best ways to avoid an encounter with a predator is to avoid detection by that predator, because they're looking for you as well. And so in the dog's mind, this mail truck and this mail person is looking for me, and therefore I'm hiding and trying to minimize any cues that give away my presence, and hence why the dog is all the way to the back of the house, lies underneath the bed, doesn't move, doesn't make a peep. Yeah, if he doesn't know I'm here, then he won't eat me. Now, wow, it's fascinating. Well, I want to talk to you today. There's a whole nother thing behind anti-predatory behavior that is also fascinating, and it's known as selective habituation. Selective habituation. Yeah, fascinating. In fact, there's a study that was done in 2014 in which harbor seals were observed, and research was done watching how they act and do they take anti-predatory behaviors around orcas. Now, this study kind of, there's been a lot of studies about anti-predatory behaviors. I mean, it ranges probably with every animal in the entire animal kingdom. This one kind of struck an accord with me, and I was just really interested in it when it came out because I used to train orcas. I used to train killer whales. And because of that, I just really got into this and going, wow, I know what kind of sounds they make. But at the end of the study, what was occurring was that these harbor seals were able to tell that slight little auditory difference between the communication in the pods and packs of killer whales, the difference between those killer whales that ate fish, hunted fish, and those that hunted mammals. So whenever the killer whales that were around, they looked the same. You wouldn't know it if you're looking through a pair of binoculars. You wouldn't know the difference. But they look for many cues, because again, avoiding a predator is very costly. It's time consuming, it's energy consuming, and it's taken away from your ability to feed yourself and your ability to find a mate and raise your offspring. It's very costly to your individual fitness. Therefore, you don't want to evade anything if there's no need to evade that thing. And they were able, through selective habituation, able to tune out all of the signals going back and forth between the killer whales that ate fish. They didn't pay them no mind whatsoever. But as soon as they heard the sound, the communication with the killer whales that attack mammals, they're immediately evoking anti-predatory behaviors. And that's what also has happened with this dog. I've done videos before on search image formation. It's how an animal looks for many cues to determine, is that prey? Is that prey or is that danger? How do I know? How do I know? And again, just like those harbor seals, this dog has done the same thing. It's looked for many cues, and they are incredibly talented at it. It's why this dog will allow other vehicles to go by, no problem. Allow other people to approach the door. It doesn't run to the back of the house. No, only a mail truck and only a mail delivery person evokes this response. And if you don't think it can happen, check this out. This is how neat this is. Okay, so we have a mail truck. That is the predator, or the delivery vehicle for the predator. But nevertheless, this dog can tell the difference in a second between this vehicle and that vehicle. And that vehicle. Yeah, can also tell the difference between that person and that person. Yeah, I can tell it. Is it a mail delivery person, or is it just a normal furless biped approaching and knocking on the door? That dog can tell that difference. Really fascinating. And why? Because animals can do this. A wolf can tell the difference between those antlers and a tree branch at 100 yards. No problem. That fast. Can catch it. Amazing. And you wonder how that dog was able to tell the difference between a mail truck and maybe a repair vehicle or a UPS vehicle or a UPS delivery person versus a mail delivery person. They can do it. Check that out. Can you see it? Can you see it? That's a hare. Again, the genetic baseline that your dog rose from came from a creature that can tell that difference with that thing not moving at all, easily 100 yards away. No problem. Okay? How about that? Look what's staring at you. Look what's got you right there. Wolf, hiding behind those trees. Man, I've seen that many times. I've seen that, and that can be quite, oh, geez. I think I even gave myself goosebumps just now. I really did. It's evoking memories. Memories of my time out in the wild, observing wolves, and all of a sudden looking up and going, something a little different about that tree. They're not moving a muscle. Because remember, humans are the only thing that hunt wolves. Now, fortunately for me, when I was younger, not a lot of hunting of wolves going on in my parts of the world. Other parts of the world, yes. So these wolves will stand behind a tree or next to a tree and not move, because if I'm immobile, maybe you won't realize I'm standing right here. Yeah, check that out. I have seen that in real life. Like I said, that gave me goosebumps. But man, I was lucky to see it. And I don't know how many thousands of times I never did see it, but they certainly saw me. Okay? They can also tell this. Wow, look at that. Fortunately, I have not seen that, at least not in that way. That's really scary. That looks like a big boulder laying out there, a big old tree stump from a tree that probably fell who knows how long ago. But yet a wolf and your dog would be able to tell the difference in the two. Definitely be able to tell the difference in the two, depending on your dog's breed. What kind of baseline does it have? What is its genetic attributes? Which ones, in other words, that we have not cleaved out of that dog? The dogs that we've cleaved the less of the wolf out of them would be able to discern that. Some dogs, I doubt it if my mortgage would be able to tell if that was a bear versus a big tree stump or a big boulder. And then how about that? There you go. Do you see it? Right there. Camouflaged man. You bet. A wolf can tell that. They can see it. They know it's there. They're uncanny, their abilities. Sometimes you sit there and start thinking, wow, do you have like Star Trek type powers? Like a mind meld or something of that sort? I kid you not. I've been in encounters with wolves, and I even write about one in my book, The Hammer, Why Dogs Attack Us and How to Prevent It. In one of the very last stories, in which we had these cameras that were set up, and they were operated from remote. And they're way up in a tree, and they've been up there for a while, so all odor has to be gone. It has to be. And you're sitting there thinking, I'm going to spy on these wolves. This is a trail that we know that they travel often. We can now spy on them from remote. And I tell the story about this one time this wolf stopped and just looked around. Gone. Yeah, it knew something was out of place. They have that ability. And your dogs, all you have to do is present something that even begins to resemble a predator to them. And I tell you what, from a survival standpoint, you will learn very quickly. You will learn it faster and retain it longer. Anything that has to do with your survival. Anything. Everything else is gravy. But this dog was able to pick all of that out, and does pick that out. So at the end of the day, what do you do when you have a dog like this? Well, you can always try to avoid the provocative stimulus, and that's what that is. That male truck and that male person, they are provocative stimuli. The time of day in which it occurs is a provocative event. You can try to avoid it, meaning maybe you move somewhere in which the mailbox is at the end of the road, at the end of the driveway, which happens to be about a mile long. Probably game over. Won't need to worry about it, because over a period of time, the animal will habituate to the fact that the smell truck never comes again. It never shows up. If you can't do that, you'll have to intervene. Anytime you can't avoid the provocative event or the provocative stimulus, you must intervene. And how do you intervene in a situation like this? If this were my dog, I'm going to intervene to start off with some sort of chemical. This dog is having a very high reaction. This dog definitely views this as a predator. That means their stress response is super mobilized, probably beyond the point in which my cognition is enhanced. Probably in a point in which procedural memory is now operating and the animal is developing molecular memory of the event. I'm going to try and disrupt that, trap the animal at a level in which the cognition is enhanced. Slow it down, slow the heart rate down, suppress the stress response. And there are many medications and chemicals that can do that. You can start off with something as easy as a CBD. You can move into something with more of a sedative value, keeping it low so the animal's not sedated, something like a trazodone. You can just work your way. If the animal's showing pure panic, you can use the panicolytic benzodiazepine. There's a lot of things that you can do to facilitate behavioral change. But you've got to rest that stress response so the animal doesn't feel panic enough to leave. And then once you have that, then the animal will be more receptive to relearning the situation, to now refocusing and then in changing its interpretation of the mail delivery truck and the mail person. This is an animal that now you'll be able to say, hey, tell you what, mailman's coming, mail person's coming. Sit. Why don't you stay here with me? And if the animal starts to panic at that point there, that is game over. Game over. You now need to go back to drawing board. Anytime you use chemicals, you always search for what's called the effective dose. And until you reach the effective dose, it will not serve as a facilitator of the behavioral change that you're trying to create. So you'd have to go back, now re-administer a different dose, and you do that 2 or 3 times long before you declare what's called medication failure. You will declare dosage failure. But you should get to a point with the right medication where the animal will stand there and go, wow, mail truck. Normally, I'd be back there about now. But give me a second. I'm working on it here. I'm kind of working up my panic here. So what are we doing? Yeah, I got you, buddy. Lean on me, man. Social support. I got it. I'll take care of this thing. Hey, how are you doing? Nice to meet you today. I'll take my mail, see how that works. Bingo. Tell you what, you want to play? Want to play with the ball right now? You want a treat? I got the best treats in the whole wide world right now. In other words, I'm going to do a lot of counter conditioning, but before you can do counter conditioning, you must disrupt the panic. You must deactivate the dog's natural response to want and hide. I've treated dogs who've done similar behaviors with thunderstorms, unfamiliar people, unfamiliar dogs, and even though you have healed their brain, their hippocampus is now healthy. We don't have vast acres of brain cells that have been destroyed. Their brain is normal. The habit is still there. All of a sudden, because otherwise, if you don't step in to do therapy, you should never talk about using any sort of psychopharmaceutical medications without bringing therapy into the room. Behavior modification. Those two go hand in hand. You do not do one without the other if you want to change something like this. And I will go into that big time when I have my little mini-series on canine pharmacotherapy. But once you do this, if you don't do the pharmacotherapy, you just try to do the pharmaco, you may cause a physiological change, but the coping mechanism that is now like a path worn through a forest. There goes that dog. Probably one day I'll be laying underneath the bed going, I'm underneath the bed. Why am I here? What am I doing underneath here? I can't help myself. I just go to the bed. Certain time of the day and off I go. Yeah, so you've got to disrupt it. You've got to get in there and then show the animal, introduce the animal, another way of dealing with this particular situation. And if you do that, that's how you get through something like this. It's how you get through it. So again, I come up here probably in the next about a week and a half. I'm going to do a little mini-series on pharmacotherapy. Sad that we have to use that approach with many dogs nowadays, but thank God we can, because we do have a tool that we can use. We use it to save human beings, and we certainly can use it to save dogs and save a dog from a situation like this. Because here's my biggest worry. A lot of people go, oh, it's fine, I don't care. If the dog runs and hides underneath the bed, it's only back there for about an hour. I get to do some emails, and I'm not distracted by a dog, so it's all fine. Here's my problem. You ever play that smack-a-mole game? Being one down, another one pops up. Let me just tell you something. I have not had time to really interview this viewer in depth. But if I do so, I guarantee you this. There's other skeletons dangling in the closet. This just happens to be the most observable one, the most pronounced skeleton. And therefore your focus is on it. But there are other ones. There is no such thing with a dog as a one-dimensional condition. I have 40 years of practicing pharmacotherapy. I have never, ever seen it. And my colleagues and academics who I bounce things off on a continuous basis never seen it either. There is no such thing among dogs. Can be among humans, but not among dogs. That's why I'm going after this, because otherwise I may end up having 2 conditions or 3 by the time this dog gets a little older. Things left like this, untreated, will become worse. Take that to the bank. It's the absolute truth. Okay, guys, so that's what's going on with this situation. If you have a dog doing the same thing, it's hightailing it out of there, it's doing the direct opposite what most dogs you hear your friends' dogs doing, then you need to take a second, step back and think, what the heck is going on here? In many cases, it's simply a predator evoking anti-predator behavior. Absolutely. It mirrors the same thing that a rabbit would use if a wolf were hunting it. An elk would use if a wolf were hunting it. The exact same behaviors. ID. Try to remain hidden. Try to avoid detection. And then if I'm caught, trapped, or whatever, then fight my way out of it, display my way out of it, flee my way out of it. And I'm going to use selective habituation to phase out all the things that are non-threats. So not that person walking by the window, not that dog walking by the window, not that electrical repair truck driving by the window. It's only the mail truck. Yeah, things will develop and become worse, and these animals are using anti-predatory behavior, and your dog could be doing the same thing. If it is, pay attention to it. You need to get busy making that thing go away before it becomes much, much worse. All right, guys, that's it. I'm out of here. I got a couple more questions to answer, and then I'm going to do a little mini-series on canine nutrition, a very important thing nowadays in a field or just a business area that is exploding right now. And therefore, anytime anything explodes, you need to put on your clear glasses, not your blinders, okay? So in other words, half-truths. Don't believe everything that you're told. Go into it with a little skepticism. You need to do that. Okay, and then pharmacotherapy, and then, hey, starting tomorrow, I'm in the teens, baby. I'm in the teens. Today's 345 of the 365. Marching on. Have a great day. Be safe. Have a great training day. Take care.